Okay, we're going to start exploring Boolean logic. So, what is Boolean logic? Um, Sounds really tough, doesn't it? Actually, it's nothing more than common sense in a way. So, how that works? This is really the way to think of Boolean is just the word and or, um, and that's about it. Really, there's it's either this or that, and you get your results. So instead of saying um, if you have this, the light bulb is screwed in and the light switch is on, you get light out of your lamp, and that's the way that works. So you have this and this to get the switch. Now, um, you can either have a battery pack or a light switch on and the light bulb's plugged in, and you'll get light out of your lamp. Um, so really, all Boolean means is that simple: this or this or this and that. So let's not get too into it here. Well, let's take a look and see how we can get started. Um, so what we want to do here is we're going to make sure our input tag is on. We want to check and see when we turn our input on, the output turns on. When we turn the input off, the output turns off. So it's as basic as it gets again, kind of starting back from the beginning. Go ahead and toggle it on and let's press the check. From here, we now have input 1 and output 1, but we've added input 2 as well. So what happens when we go here and press input 1? The output 1 lights up. If we turn it back off again and we push input 2, output 1 does not light up. That's because there is no input 2 on this part of the circuit, on this part of the ladder logic. So what we need to do here is go ahead and switch this. We're going to create a new tag up here, a Boolean tag called capital OUT put space 2, output 2. And we are going to change input 1 to input 2. We're going to change output 1 to output 2. And now you can see if we turn on input 2, it affects output 2. If we turn on input 1, it doesn't do anything. If we turn on output 1, it doesn't do anything. But only input 2 is affecting output 2. And we can play around with this for a minute. Go ahead and explore. So if we put input 1, input 2 doesn't do anything, but input 1 does now. So as long as input 1 and output, as long as your input and output match on your circuit, you can affect those variables or those buttons over here on the left side. Pretty simple. Moving on to lesson 2 of this section of Boolean logic, we're going to go ahead and switch to the contacts tab. That's this first one here. It's already open. Should be by default. Drag the normally open contact from the contacts tab. So we're going to take this one here. Normally open, again, is this one that has an open space in between it. So normally open means off in this case. You have an open gap in between the circuit, so electricity can't flow. Normally open. We're going to take this and drag it down onto our bar over top of where it says input 1. If we drag it over here, you'll see this line. We want to put it right over top of input 1. And that gives us this section here. So we're going to go ahead and call variable 1. We're going to call it input 2 in this case. We're going to switch it. And now we've got input 1, input 2, and output on the left. We've got input 1, input 2, and output on our ladder logic. Here's what we want to do though. Go ahead and press input 1 on your control switch, your control panel, and we get no output. We can see the input 1 is green, but the output is not functioning. So the only way to do that is to put on input 2. And when we have input 1 and input 2, we get our output. So again, there's our Boolean logic. We talked about Boolean as being and or. We have our first Boolean logic So input 1 and input 2 creates our value of output on. So again, both of these, this and this, have to be on for this to work. That's about it. That's as simple as it gets. Moving on, now let's look at the possibilities of our OR section here. So we did the AND, now let's look at OR. What does OR mean? Well, you have this or that. So in Boolean world, that's all it means, is this or that. So if we look at this, we can kind of see that input 1 or this branch that comes down, it's a branch of the ladder, says or input 2, and then we get an output. So what do you think is going to happen when we push input 1? We get our output. What if we put input 2? Now we have all three of them lit up. If we take off input 1, our output is still lit up. And if we take out input 2, our output goes out. So we have input 1 and input 2, or input 2 in this case, they're both on, but this or this is on, which means we get our output. So again, when you see a branch come down like this, that's typically means it's this or this allows electricity to flow to our output. To continue, it says turn on both input 1 and input 2 and press the check button. We're good to go. Go ahead and we'll explore more here in just a second on our next lesson.